Nature can be wonderful. It can kind of help us relax a little bit. It can ground us and kind of take our mind away from all the craziness that's happening in the world with the pandemic and with everything else. And a lot of times it can be very therapeutic and healthy for you to be out in nature. But what happens if you are in quarantine? What happens if you work from home, you're in an office all day, and you're not able to get outside and enjoy nature? Well, you can bring it right inside, and that's what I'm talking to you about today. Hey fish friends, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Zenzo from Tazawa Tanks. Now today's a little bit different of setting. If you watch my videos, you know that I have a fish room. I've got aquariums all over the house. Now I am in my office. I don't really film very much in here. This is where I spend the majority of my day, however. Because of the pandemic, I am working from home, and this is my home office, so I spend the majority of my day in here working. And then in addition to that, this is where I do all of my YouTube work, my editing, and all of that other stuff behind the scenes that most of you don't see. Now, being that I spend a lot of my time in this room, and that it's not my fish room, and that it's not my living room where I have other aquariums, I am a little bit isolated from all that stuff. I'm on the third level of my home, and I'm far away from all that stuff. So I want to make sure that I have some aquarium life here in this room, because it really does help me. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is I really do believe that having a slice of nature, a piece of nature in your home environment can really be helpful. It can be therapeutic and add a real different element of beauty and kind of change the whole aura and feeling of that room or that space. Now, if you happen to have a home office, I would highly recommend setting up some type of system in your office so that you can have a beautiful aquarium, a terrarium, a paludarium, something that, you know, brings you some peace and some joy and being able to look at the plants and the nature, etc. Additionally, if you are working in an office building, maybe your country or your state has opened back up and you're now going back to work, this might be a good time to have a tank or something in your office as well, because it can, again, if you're in a building all day, you're under those fluorescent lights 8, 9, 10 hours during the day, having the ability to just kind of turn and stare at something green and living and beautiful can really, really help you, and maybe even help your mental health. Now, having an aquarium in your office or in your home office is not that difficult. It doesn't have to be a large, elaborate system. It can be something very simple, very basic, with just some very simple, easy to care for fish and a few plants. So in here in my office, and I don't film very much in here, but I have showed these before in the past in some of my tour videos. These were kind of neglected. I didn't spend a lot of time upkeeping them and taking care of them, despite the fact that I'm sitting here so much during the day. Because when I do work on my aquariums, I usually go downstairs to the living room, to my display tanks, or down into my fish room, which is basically like a studio gallery now, and spend a lot of time down there. So these tanks got neglected. There was a lot of algae, and the plants were doing terribly, and they were kind of just disheveled. And even though I was taking care of the inhabitants and feeding them and taking care of everything, it looked terrible. And what happened is, when it looked terrible, I spent less time looking at it, and kind of the stress level was building in me, and every time I looked at the tanks, I would kind of get a little bit stressed out and uptight. So I decided to fix it, to change everything, and kind of do a full rescape and remodel of the tanks here. So enough of me talking in front of the camera. I'll go ahead and show some footage. I actually took some time-lapse footage of me doing the work while I was changing everything out, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like now. Okay, so this is kind of like what it looked like a little bit beforehand. What we're not looking at is, I had some terrible lights on here before. I ended up replacing them with these Phoenix Stingray lights that I got from aquariumcoop.com. I'll put a link down below on where to get these lights. But basically, this is pretty much what the tank looked like, minus the better lighting and a couple of extra pieces of driftwood that I put in there. But as you can see, it's overgrown and just not looking great there. That's my bedded tank. So here I am taking out the wood, and I start to trim down the Java moss. Now this Java moss is kind of like a, it's basically like a plastic knitting net that I sewed a bunch of Java moss to kind of create a natural wall and it just got overgrown, so now it had to trim it and cut it all back, and then do a big water change so that we can kind of get it all fresh and looking better again. Added a new Indian almond leaf for some cover so that the fish kind of has an area to have a little cover from the light. This is the other tank. This one was even worse. It was just full of moss and algae, as you saw. And this is not even really showing all the bad parts. So had to do a big water change. I've got a net over there so I can not suck up some of the fish, but did a big water change and added some wood, and now I'm adding some plants. Now these plants I actually got for free from a friend of mine that stopped by and dropped off some plant clippings. So I'm not exactly sure what the plants are, but I planted them in the tank. Here we can see the betta kind of going nuts, chasing some some live food that I put in there. I'll put a link above of these live foods so they can see what kind of foods these are, and they're super easy to take care of. But anyway, here we can see that the tank's kind of been rescaped and looks a lot better. I don't know the name of those plants, but trimmed the wall and just kind of cleaned everything up. This one wasn't as bad as the other tank, obviously. And as I shared, this is kind of a false wall that I made with moss, and that's where the filtration and the heater goes behind there so that it's hidden and you can't see it. The tank down below doesn't have a heater. The guppies don't need it if it's room temperature, but the betta does need the warmer water, so that's why there's a heater in there. Both of these tanks are filtered by a sponge filter. And in this tank, I kind of went for a wooded, root look. I did plant those plants in the back. I think it's some kind of rotella, I'm not sure. And I'm also going to be growing a Monte Carlo carpet, or attempting to grow a Monte Carlo carpet. There you can see the plant there in the center. Eventually that will come out of that little holding thing, and it will spread out kind of like a lawn and grow all along the bottom, and hopefully even up some of the wood vines there as well. That's all manzanita wood. And these are all live bears. These are all guppies and endlers in here. Just kind of a fun, beautiful tank to enjoy some fish that are really easy to take care of, very low maintenance, and now it looks a whole lot better with those plants. So there you go. That's just kind of a short midweek video. I did want to talk about this and share with you kind of a behind the scenes of what it looks like in my office and my tanks here, and also share with you that I let stuff go too, and not everything that I have looks perfect. And which you saw there with the way that the tanks looked before. But I did want to, again, highlight the fact that I really do believe that having a little slice of nature in your office environment is really, really beneficial. I think that it can really center you and give you some kind of peace while you're at work, when you're under those fluorescent lights, when you're in that office building or in your home office for so many hours during the day. Having the ability to kind of turn and look at something amazing and beautiful and alive, I think can be very helpful. So I would love to read down below in the comments if you have a tank or a paludarium or a terrarium or any thing living and green and alive in your office situation, and what prompted you to put that in your office if you do, and if you don't, do you have the ability to do so? It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be 20 gallons or 29 or 55 or anything large. It could be something small. The bigger one's 10 gallons. The smaller one is like less than 5 gallons, like 4.5 gallons. You could do like a little 2.5 gallon system or something. So it doesn't have to be large, just something that's small and beautiful and easy to care for. I think would be just fine. So comment down below if you have one, or if you plan on doing one, or if you can't have one, why. And hopefully this motivates some of you to go out and get a little small tank for your office. That's all I had for now. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.